You're listening to the Rut Ambush Podcast. And here are your hosts, Chad Cottle and Tommy Engram.
Welcome back to the Rut Ambush Podcast. This is going to be a short one, folks. This is going to be an introduction to a important topic that I've wanted to discuss for several weeks. However, the rut was going on, and we had to deal with hunting and things of that nature. So we're back. Chad can't be here, but like I said, this is going to be a short one. The thing I want to introduce is something that's important to our overall yearly strategy. One of the main factors I always talk about, I believe it's the most important factor in your success, and one of the most important factors why people are not successful is factoring in hunting pressure on the land that you hunt, whether it doesn't matter, state or private land. I'm going to tell you a quick story. I was a fairly new hunter about 6 years ago, and I had just started rut functional hunting. And the day that I got into town, I was staying in a hotel room, and a neighboring town had a laundromat. So I went to this laundromat to get my clothes washed. Just happened to see somebody in there washing some hunting clothes, so we struck up a conversation. This was on the evening of November 9th, probably 2014. This particular person that I was talking to was a hunter from Tennessee, and he had come into Ohio to hunt the rut. And I was talking to him. I said, "Oh, you know somebody with some private land that you're hunting?" And he's like, "No, we're hunting state forest." So I immediately thought to myself, good luck with all that if you're hunting state land. Hold on to the end of this story, folks. So he tells me, yeah, we come here every year. And I happened to ask him, I said, why don't you hunt Tennessee? Why did you come all the way to Ohio? He said, Ohio's premier public hunting land. In Tennessee, they're allowed to take 2 bucks, rifle season, gun season's going on, a lot of the deer season. We very rarely see big bucks down in Tennessee. Ohio's prime. We got Ohio. You guys have great public resources. You got great public land, lots and lots of it. We come here every year and we do pretty well. So I wished him luck, went on my way, washed my clothes, went to bed, got up the next morning. That particular year, I missed 2 bucks. I saw a bunch of deer the next day. I saw a total of 7 bucks the next day. I missed 2 of them out of a ground blind. And so my hunt continued. So that night, went back to my hotel room. Got to go back to the laundromat. Go back to the laundromat around the same time. Who do I see? Mr. Tennessee. So I was like, well, I went over to him. I had what I thought was a successful day. I'd seen 7 bucks, shot at 2 of them. Wasn't successful harvesting one, but I'd seen a bunch of bucks. So I'm going over, hey, Mr. Public Land. So I talked to him. How'd you do today? He goes, I did pretty good. And I said, really? Did you kill one? He said, yeah, I killed one. And I said, really? Do you have a picture of it? He said, yeah. Pulls his phone out. To this date, one of the biggest bucks I'd ever seen killed on public land of anybody that I'd ever spoken to. He had to be close to a Boone and Crockett. He's definitely over a 150-inch deer, big mature buck. And I'm just like totally dumbfounded. I'm asking him all kinds of questions. How'd you do it? Your first day hunting? Da, da, da. He basically told me we're very simple. We do scout it. We do come in prior to the season. We do scout it, but we go far in. We look at the maps and we go far in to where other hunters aren't willing to go, and we get on a ridge and we climb a tree and we see a lot of big deer. He said he had passed a couple bucks that day, I believe, but he killed early in the morning. His buddy helped him drag it out. So I said, well, I'm asking him, well, why are you washing clothes if you killed your buck today? And he said, well, my buddy's hunting tomorrow and I'm going to go try and get a doe. So I was like, oh, okay, your buddy didn't get one. He's like, well, no, he spent most of the day helping me drag out. So I was like, okay. So I go the next morning, November 11th, 2014 or whatever year it was. I end up killing somewhere around noon a 2.5-year-old deer, 10-point. Actually, my first buck with a bow, and I'm really excited, super excited. But anyway, so I end up wanting to get a doe the next day. So I go back to the laundromat the third night. Who do I see in there? Mr. Tennessee. And I was like, hey, man, we got to quit running into each other. We start talking. I was like, how'd your buddy do? He goes, he killed a nice one too. I was like, really? Do you have a picture of it? And he has a picture, and it's another bigger deer than I'd ever killed at that point. Actually, this deer was in the high 140s, close to 150, bigger deer than I've ever killed to this point. Anyway, and he killed his doe. All in the same plan. They went back far, walked back far, and killed in places where no other public land hunter's willing to go. Why am I telling this story? The reason why I'm telling this story is it doesn't matter if you're hunting public or private land. It depends on what state you're in, but if you're willing to scout the public land that you're hunting, be willing to go where other hunters aren't willing to go, whether you have to access it by water or get into the thick stuff, walk long distances. But it's all about hunting pressure. The deer, white-tailed deer, antelope, elk, whatever you're hunting, they know what hunting pressure is. They know what endangers their life, and they're going to get away from it, plain and simple. Today, I want to introduce what I have found from another hunting podcast by the name of a term by the name of optimal foraging theory. The optimal foraging theory is very simple, and it simply says this. If an animal has a food source 100 yards away, say it's a fantastic food source 100 yards away, but that animal knows in order to leave his bed and get to that food source during daylight, he has to put his life in danger. That same animal would be willing to walk 350 yards the opposite direction for a lesser food source, given that food source has less danger attached to it, less threat to his life. Optimal foraging theory is something that I would like our listeners to become a term that I would like for them to become familiar with. And I'm going to tell you the reason why I bring this up is I'm going to be talking about it more often in podcasts to come. And I would like to introduce you to several podcasters who have a podcast called The podcast is Deer University. These two podcasters are out of Mississippi State University by the name of Steve Demarius and Bronson Strickland. There are 4 separate podcasts I'd like for you to listen to. Episode 12, Effects of the Rut on a Buck. Episode 15, Science of the Rut. Episode 17, Buck Movements and the ebook. And that episode 17, that's the episode where I first was introduced to optimal foraging theory. And episode 30, Buck Movement Patterns During the Rut. Now, all 4 of those podcasts aren't specifically related to optimal foraging theory. They all have different aspects of issues related to hunting pressure in them. But the reason why I'm bringing those up all together is because this is the first time one of the first times I've ever brought up Deer University in that podcast. And those are the 4 episodes that I've listened to that I think are of great significance to the education of the white-tailed deer hunter. And I will be bringing up things that I've learned in those 4 podcasts over the coming weeks. So if you get an opportunity, download those 4 podcasts. It can let you geek out on the science of white-tailed deer, and that information, all the information that we get related to their physiology and biology that helps us be successful in the fall is important. So just take my word for it. Download those 4 episodes. And I promise you're going to learn a lot from those 4 podcasts, and we're going to talk about those issues in coming weeks. But today, the big deal, and I told that story to say this. I wanted to introduce optimal foraging theory, and I wanted to say that there is nothing more important than hunting pressure when it comes to the success of a white-tailed deer hunter. There's nothing more important. It doesn't matter what food plot you have. It doesn't matter what time of the rut you're hunting. It doesn't matter what weapon you're hunting with. Well, unless you're hunting with a rifle, then that's a bit of a game changer. But still, hunting pressure can significantly impact rifle hunters too. It's not as significant as someone who's got to get up close and personal hunting with archery equipment, but it's still a factor. Hunting pressure is still a factor. The biggest factor, in my opinion. If I killed on November 15th, I had issues related to not getting it done early, some related to the weather, some related to my own doing, some related to whatever. I could think of a million different excuses, but there was definitely something different about what was going on my farm, and it wasn't all related to the weather. So there was some hunting pressure going on down there. I need to get it figured out. I got a whole year to get it figured out. I'll get it figured out, but, there's no excuses. But introducing this optimal foraging theory, wanted to bring it up to the listeners because I want our listeners to be introduced to that podcast, Deer University, and those 4 episodes, episode 12, 15, 17, and 30. That's all I got for today, folks. Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to the Rut Ambush Podcast with Chad Cottle and Tommy Engram.